Hello friends, today I will talk about survival, adventure and thriller movie name, 127 Hours. The opening sequences of the film feature numerous scenes of crowds, racing, spectators at sporting events, passengers boarding and alighting trains, and generally a lot of people. The soundtrack is quite reminiscent of Slumdog Millionaire, and it transitions. Today is Saturday. We can see that his Swiss Army knife is just out of reach in a cabinet, but because it is still dark outside and he is moving quickly across his apartment, he is unable to locate it. He even searches the cabinet, but his hand misses it, causing him to go empty-handed. He gets some energy snacks, fills up his Camelback and Nalgene bottles, and then practically sprints out the door. He's meant to come off as a very vivacious man to the audience. Aaron gets in his car and speeds into the desert while listening to even louder music, telling his camera that he only needs darkness, music, and himself. He pulls up to what appears to be a very modest campsite, but instead of setting up camp, he simply climbs inside his vehicle and lies down to sleep. Aaron gets up in the morning and gets on his bike. You can tell this guy loves the outdoors and adventure because of how enthusiastic and full of energy he is. He performs wheelies and jumps over obstacles as he travels through the desert on his motorcycle. He stumbles a couple of times, but he just laughs it off and resumes riding. He has a camera mounted on the handlebars of his bicycle, and he frequently pauses to inform the audience on his goals and progress. In all but 2 or 3 moments, Aaron, James Franco, is by himself, thus using the camera to explain what is happening and/or interact with someone or something while he is out is almost his justification. Aaron makes the decision to bicycle to Blue John Canyon. He travels as quickly as he can, parks his bike, and then begins to climb. He decides to say hello after hearing 2 girls go by while he is climbing for a while. Christy, Kate Mara, and Megan, Amber Tamblyn, are there, and it's obvious that they're lost. Despite glancing at a map, they seem to be having trouble deciding where to go. They are greeted by Aaron, who informs them that he can assist. When he asks where they want to go, they reply, "The Dome," to which Aaron responds that he can take them. They begin to move, but Aaron stops them and offers to show them a better area to climb if they are game. Evidently, they find him to be a little odd but also kind of cute, so they stick with him. Then there is the preview scene where Aaron, Megan, and Christy are climbing in a very small crevice and Aaron assures them that everything will be okay before he suddenly lets go of the wall and falls into the extremely small crack. In spite of the frightening situation, he lands in a stunning blue lake or pond and sings to the girls to reassure them that he is safe. Christy leaps first, followed by Megan, and they all have a great time repeatedly jumping into the water and playing on a little boulder along the water's edge. Aaron keeps a record of everything, but not in a spooky sense, rather, he just likes to have a record of the places his wild life leads him. After what feels like an hour or 2 of playing in the water, everyone starts to move away. When Aaron asks if he'll ever see them again, they respond that they are holding a party the following night and that he can locate it by looking for a huge inflatable Scooby-Doo that will be outside the party. He promises to be there and then turns to go. It is obvious that Christy had a crush on Aaron, and the girls giggle together about it. Aaron starts to ascend on his own when he comes upon a very tiny canyon into which he climbs. He dives into the canyon after leaping over a branch. After a brief period of climbing through it, he comes upon a large drop-off with a boulder perched on top. He kicks the rock to make sure it is secure before using it as a handhold as he climbs into the drop-fall. Because he has been holding onto the boulder, it falls toward him as it becomes loose as he is entering. The boulder falls into the canyon with him as he plummets around 15 feet, and as a result of the manner he lands, his arm is impaled directly between the boulder and the canyon wall. Although there is a small amount of blood, it is obvious that his hand is not going to come out. Even though the movie has only been going for approximately 25 minutes, the title card appears immediately away and reads, 127 hours, which is a tremendously heartbreaking thing to read. As soon as Aaron becomes stuck, Aaron attempts for some time to remove the rock from his arm, but it is way too heavy and is really firmly stuck. Again, since the main focus of this film is Aaron attempting to free his arm, I can't guarantee that these are in the correct order, but I'll try. I'm certain I'll make some mistakes. Aaron tries to lift it in a variety of ways but is unable. He attempts to kick it out, but it is immovable. He pulls on his arm firmly in an attempt to simply rip it out, but it is completely ineffective. He yells for assistance at the top of his lungs, but as he does so, the camera emerges from the canyon and reveals how vast and open the desert is and how little the crack is. He is totally alone and lonely. He searches through everything in his backpack as he attempts to think of anything he might have with him to aid. He attempts to chip away at the stone with a multi-tool that is inferior to a Leatherman but still attempts to do so. He recalls receiving the multi-tool and flashlight for free. He accidentally drops the multi-tool into a little hole that is out of his reach, and to retrieve it, he uses a stick that he is holding with one foot. He pulls out his camera and starts to describe what occurred and how he arrived. He offers to let whoever discovers it keep the camcorder in exchange for trying to deliver the tape to his parents, whom he specifically names and provides their address for. The night arrives somewhere in here, and Aaron tries to sleep but can't because he is shivering. Aaron cracks jokes to the camera and to himself throughout the long and chilly night to keep himself amused. He really is a fantastic man, and he never gives up. When morning arrives, the display informs us that it is Sunday. He is running out of water very quickly and is unsure of what to do. Aaron starts to try to build a pulley system with his climbing ropes to try to move the boulder off of him, but he talks to himself about how he would need a lot of gear and that the climbing ropes are too elastic. He claims that because the boulder is so heavy, he would require 8 strong men to lift it all. He sits in his climbing harness to get some sleep, but his position is dire. The first time Aaron remembers something he wishes he had done differently was a few days earlier when he disregarded his mother's phone call. He hears her message, but he is busy getting dressed and chooses to disregard it. He doesn't return her call, and she really wants to chat to him. He regrets not returning his sister's call, Lizzie Kaplan, from earlier in the movie, so he apologizes to her in front of the camera. He ends the recording by pledging to always be with them. He also recalls a moment when he was in love with an anonymous blonde girl and that they enjoyed some wonderful times together. They met while he was abroad, some intimate time in a car, hanging out with friends, etc., but at some point in the past, they split up at a sporting event, and she tells him that he will always be alone. Even though he is surrounded by a large group of people when they close in on him at the game, he feels completely alone and lonely. Throughout the film, he continues getting these flashbacks, but there isn't much chronological coherence, so I can't really remember what happened when he considers how he didn't at all notify anyone where he was going as he studies a map. When Tuesday arrives, Aaron's flashbacks start to resemble hallucinations. Every morning, a raven glides by and catches his attention. He begins to converse with it. He has a very intense dream or hallucination that a huge storm comes up and completely floods the canyon because he is really short on water. He escapes the boulder when it is lifted by the river and hurries to the home of his former girlfriend, where she slams the door in his face. He cries and screams, "Please," at her as he awakens, but it was all only a dream. With the rock sitting on the tender flesh of his arm, Aaron realizes that all the chipping away he has been doing to the rock has simply been making it more stuck and that he is getting increasingly desperate. More hallucinations of his family members sitting on a couch in front of him in the canyon appear to him. He misses them all but acknowledges that he never truly let them into his life. He does a short comedy in which he poses as a guest on a talk show and answers questions. He quips that he really ought to have informed someone of his whereabouts, but he hasn't. Now that it's Tuesday, he understands that his supervisor would notice if he doesn't show up for work today, but even if his boss calls the police, Aaron won't officially become a missing person until 24 hours have passed. This realization makes him feel a little more bleak. After dropping his bottle and using up most of his reserve, he realizes he needs water, so he starts to urinate into his water bottle so he has something to drink. It is pretty repulsive. Additionally, he keeps attempting to re-wet his contacts, but his eyes are becoming very sore. He's really breaking down. Wednesday is right now. In addition to his name and the dates of his birth and death, Aaron also carved his delirium into the canyon face. He thinks that everything that has happened to him throughout his life has led him to this boulder, and that this boulder has been waiting for him since the Earth's creation. Wednesday is right now. In addition to his name and the dates of his birth and death, Aaron also carved his delirium into the canyon face. He thinks that everything that has happened to him throughout his life has led him to this boulder, and that this boulder has been waiting for him since the Earth's creation. He reflects on his road to get here as well as how he has always liked independence and been a loner. He thinks back to the day he captured his younger sister performing the piano, and it makes him feel guilty about missing her wedding if he passes away. Finally, he sees his future son clearly as a young child lying on a couch in the canyon. He converses with the youngster and sees himself as a nice father who will instruct his son. He is aware of what must be done. Aaron utilizes the rubbery camelback straw, which is shaped like a tube, as a tourniquet. He ties off his arm and tries to hack into his skin with the multi-tool, but it is too dull from all the stone scraping to even do that. Finally, he simply stabs his arm, striking bone. Realizing that he must first break the bones, he places a rock in between himself and the boulder and uses it to do just that. He breaks both of his arm bones. No bones penetrate the skin. Despite the sound being extremely loud and unpleasant, the camera work is exceedingly choppy and jumpy to make the audience feel as unsteady as Aaron is as he proceeds to cut away all the soft tissue surrounding the break with the little, extremely blunt knife on the multi-tool. Aaron attempts to talk himself out of passing out despite the blood all around him. Although the knife is entirely dull, Aaron must just take off the few tendons he needs to cut. He stumbles back and is released after seeing the cutting for around 2 to 3 minutes. Even though he is wounded and severely dehydrated, he exits the canyon by slinging his arm. He must rappel down a cliff, but when he finally arrives at the bottom and sees water, he is overjoyed and drinks as much as he can. Even though the water is somewhat filthy, he continues to drink until he spots a family of 3 and screams out to them with all of his remaining power. He sips some of the clean water they quickly bring to him. Aaron then enters and exits consciousness as another family arrives. After experiencing a gust of wind, he realizes that a helicopter has arrived to transport him to the hospital. The scenes alternate between the helicopter journey and Aaron swimming in a crystal clear, picture-perfect pool with 1.5 arms. After emerging to the surface, he finds his family seated on the same couch as when he was hallucinating in the canyon. Then, the screen informs us that Aaron Ralston's prophecy came true and that they welcomed their first child, a son named Leo, in February 2010 when he was sitting on a couch with his wife Jessica. As the image fades to black, it is announced that Aaron is currently a motivational speaker and that he is always climbing.